Welcome to Lesson 7 of the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Sailing Lessons. Today we're going to talk about downwind sailing and some things that might help you out while you're sailing downwind. Some simple things, but some tips and tricks that'll definitely help you out if you're trying to come to the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Race Night every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. We'll see you there, and without further ado, let's get into Lesson 7 of the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Sailing Lessons. The first thing we're going to talk about for downwind sailing is staying out of cover and staying in clean air when you're going on the downwind. So the way you can tell if you're in someone else's dirty air is there's little wind particles that come off the sail you might see right there. And that shows the dirty air that's coming off the boat behind you sails. So you want to try and stay out of that as much as possible. So there's a couple things that you can do if you get put in dirty air. So the one thing that I'm about to do right here is just go ahead and jibe, and that is a good way, but chances are the same boat is going to try and put you in the dirty air for as much as possible on the downwind. So you can do what I'm doing right here, where I'm just heading up a little bit until I'm just outside of the particles, and then once I head or bear back down, I'm in clean air and I can continue to sail on my downwind. So you can also be the aggressor in downwind covering. So if you have a boat in front of you or you're trying to sail from behind and make up a couple spots, you can also try and cover a boat. So I'm looking at this yellow boat in front of me right here. And this is the boat I'm going to try and cover on the downwind. So you can see I just headed up, kind of like I did to get out of cover, but this time I'm creating a close cover on the yellow boat. And you can see my wind particles are completely enveloping his boat. Obviously, he does the exact same thing I did to get out of it. He tries to jibe, and I'm going to follow him right down. And I'm lucky that that boat behind me didn't tack on top of me, because then I would be covered. And once again, this guy should be heading up to try and get out of my dirty air, but he's not. So he's completely taking all of the dirty air from my boat, and you can see I'm starting to gain on him quite a lot. So that's a good way to cover a boat on the downwind and try and stay with him as much as possible. You might not always be in a scenario where there's a lot of boats around you. You could be in a smaller fleet, and you just want to have some strategic moves and put yourself in the best position to win on the downwind without having to be aggressive and cover other boats. So right here is an example of, I'm not around very many people. There isn't a lot of people to cover, so I'm just going to try and take the best course on the downwind. So take a look in the top left-hand corner, and you can see right there's some darker water and some lighter water in the mini-map. So the darker water, as we talked about before, means that it's more pressure on the race course. So we want to try and stay in the most pressure. So you see I'm trying to stay in the darker water as much as possible on this downwind. And that should be a pretty good way to gain some spots in other boats, assuming that they're not in the pressure as well. A little bonus on this clip as well is that there is one guy in front of me that I put kind of a loose cover on. And you can see right there, he goes and jibes to get out of the cover. Now, I'm not too worried about that because he jibed his way into some pretty light air, so I don't really want to follow him. I am much more happy taking my chances in the heavy air and sailing away from any other boats to try and beat him on the downwind. That's all for today's lesson of the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Sailing Lessons. I hope you have a fantastic week and join us at the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Race Night Wednesday at 7 o'clock. I hope today's lesson helped you out a little bit with your downwind sailing, with your strategies, your tactics, and being able to win some races sailing downwind in virtual regatta. With that, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the Sail Prairie Sound Virtual Regatta Sailing Lessons.